previous session we learnt about the properties and accessors, how to deal with them, right? So we discussed about properties and accessors. How do we deal with accessors? Next, now in the class members, we have to work with methods and the constructor. We need to understand these two things. Let's see. So class members, already we learned properties and accessors. Now next important, what are methods? I hope you learned in JavaScript. So JavaScript class comprises of methods and JavaScript module comprises of functions. Generally module contains functions and class contains methods. Actually module is nothing but, so you see, later we will learn about module system. In JavaScript, actually, suppose we have currently in TypeScript, in this TypeScript file, that is index.ts. Here we are creating a class, some product, and outside the class, you can define a function. Outside the class, we can define a function. And the outside class, whatever scope is there, actually, we call this as module. Later we will learn about module system. In the next levels, we will discuss about that. But this entire file scope is considered as module. We call it as module. In a module, you can have a function. But in a class, you cannot have a function. Class cannot have a function. Functions are not supported inside class. Functions are supported inside module. They are not supported inside the class. Technically, they are supported inside the module. Not inside the class. Why? The difference is same like properties actually. So what is difference? That means the frequently asked question. What is difference between a module, a function, and method? I hope you learned in JavaScript already what is difference between a function and method. Can you tell any difference? What is difference between a function and method? In JavaScript, class contains methods, and outside the class we define function. What is difference between a function and method? Any idea? So already we have these JavaScript. Yeah. So actually, the difference between function and method is functions are immutable. And always intended to return a value. Functions are immutable and always intended to return a value. That means always functions are designed for returning a value. So methods are mutable. Already we discussed that. Why a class cannot contain function. Class cannot contain function because function is immutable and class cannot contain immutable members. Class can contain only mutable. So methods are mutable and can change the behavior. Can change the behavior according to the situation. So functions always return a value. Method may or may not return the value. Depending on the situation, it can change. So functions are intended to return value and methods may or may not return value. Actually, we also have procedures, but we don't have any procedures in JavaScript and TypeScript. Actually, in computer programming, logic is defined in 3 locations. We have functions, we have methods, and we have procedures. Procedures you will come across in database while learning Oracle or some other database. You come across with stored procedures. We don't have procedures in TypeScript and JavaScript. We have only functions and methods. Functions are intended to return value. Methods will change according to the situation. So how to write a method? How do we write a method? And how do we handle the methods? Actually, TypeScript methods are same as JavaScript methods. There is no change. In TypeScript, methods are same as JavaScript methods. Only few changes are there. What are those changes? I will show you. That means in JavaScript already you learned about functions and methods. The same here also. Only few changes are there. What are the changes? Let's see. Actually, how you define a method in a class. Generally, configuring method comprises of three things. We have declaration, we have signature, and we have definition. Configuring method contains 3 phases: declaration, signature, and definition. Generally, how the methods are defined, let's see. Actually, a method is defined like this. In a class, we have to define the methods. So methods are defined in this way. So how the methods are configured in a class? Actually, we have an access modifier and we have method name and we have parameters and if necessary return type, and we have to define the details. We need to configure the details. 1 second. So method comprises of 3 phases. So you have this part. This entire part is called method declaration. We call it as declaration. That is method declaration. And method with parameters, method with parameters, what parameters it is having. So, and what return type it is having. This parameters, up to this parameters, this is called signature. We call it as signature. Method have declaration, method have signature, and this part, what functionality it can perform, this is called definition. We call it as definition. So method have declaration, method have declaration, method have signature and definition. Generally, when you are configuring a method, it contains these three declarations. So declaration indicates access modifier, method name, the parameters, and return type. And signature indicates the method name and parameters. Whenever if you want to access the method, what we have to do? To access the method, we have to use method name, and whatever parameter values are there, you need to pass. That means methods are accessed by using its signature. In order to access a method, we have to use the signature. So technically, method contains all these options. We have declaration, we have definition, and we have signature. So this is syntactically like this. Declaration means it contains public, method name, and parameters, and return type. That's how we define. That is declaration. And signature means we have method name and the parameters. That is signature. And we have definition. Definition indicates the block representation. These are the three phases. When you are configuring the method contains three phases. So the declaration and the signature and definition. Now what is new in TypeScript is TypeScript methods can have optional parameters. That is new concept. I am not explaining anything related to JavaScript methods. Whatever you learned in JavaScript, here same. So I am not repeating the methods concept. I am just explaining what is new here, right? Actually, in JavaScript, you have methods, and you know how to write the methods, parameters, and all. So TypeScript methods also same. Only one extra is, in TypeScript methods, you can have optional parameters. In JavaScript methods, you cannot have optional parameters. In TypeScript methods, we can have optional parameters. I will show you. Another important TypeScript methods define data type. They define data type as a return type. So here, if no return type so is defined, if no return type, then configured as void. If there is no return type, then we have to configure as void. So I will show you what are the three options and how to handle them. Let's see. Means learning about methods and functions in TypeScript, everything same as JavaScript. Only these two differences are there. Actually, TypeScript methods have optional parameters and a return type. For example, see now. So I will write here a simple class and product. And in this class, I am defining some properties. Public name, it is a string type. and we have some value stored in it. Okay. Another, we have public price, that is number type, and it is having some value. Now we have public quantity, it is a number type, and we have some value. Now we need to configure a method. Methods are defined by using public access modifier. Method name, I want total, and this total have to return the quantity into price. That means it should return a number. Then we define return type as number. We define return type as number. And if return type is defined as number, it must return number. That means we have to configure return. It should return number. That means quantity into price. And how to access members in the class, you know, this dot quantity into this dot price. This is one. So we have a method with a return type. So similarly, so I am creating another method, public, and I am creating a method called print. This print method should not return any value. If it is not returning any value, it will just perform some functionality. Then its type must be defined as void. Its type is defined as void. And it should print all the details like name, price, quantity, and total. Then what we do? Console.log. We are printing the details. Name, it will come this dot name. And we have price. So that is this dot price. And we have quantity. That is this dot quantity. And we have another total, which is this dot total. That's what we have to configure. These are the details we need to specify and mention. These are the details we need to add. Now we have methods configured, and this is the method how to write. So one method is defined with return type number. Another method is not returning anything. It is void. And I am trying to print the details. Create an object, LET TV is equal to new product, and through TV I am accessing print method, which is going to print all the details. Now let's run this program and see. So let's open. Yeah, I will just compile this. So tsc index.ts and node index.js. You can see all the details are there. So we have methods configured with return type and without return type. So this is same like JavaScript, only the extra point is access modifier and the return type for method you have to mention. That is the basic thing, first basic point. So here how you configured the method. We have configured the method total and its return type, and print and its return type is void. If it is returning a value, then what return value is, based on that you have to define the type. And if it is not returning a value, you have to define as void. So there is no change, same everything as you learnt in JavaScript. But 2 points you have to know. One is access modifier, another one is return type. Okay, this is basic example. First, I will give you here the basic example. Now, what is new here is, as I told you, TypeScript methods with optional parameters. TypeScript methods with optional parameters. Actually, JavaScript methods can have parameters. TypeScript methods also can have parameters. And in JavaScript, every parameter is mandatory. In JavaScript, every parameter is mandatory. And in TypeScript, parameters can be optional. You can configure optional parameters. How? Let's see. Here, some more basic rules are there. I will tell you. See, first, let's create a simple class. Remember, as of now, what we are doing is everything I am doing in only one file, index.ts file, because we haven't learned about any module system. After we learn module system, you will learn how to create multiple files, how to create a library, how to handle it. As of now, we are doing everything in one file, because if you create multiple files, lot of conflicts will come until or unless you don't know about module system. So don't try anything other than this, because when you try multiple files, you have to know module system. Without that, you cannot handle it. So everything currently we are doing in only one file. I'm overwriting that file, because in order to use multiple files and work with them, you need to know module system, that you are going to learn in later stage. What is module system? So that is the reason every program I am newly updating into this file only, index.ts, right? To work with multiple files, you have to know module system. In next level, I will tell you how to do that. Initially here, what is new? Let's see, create a class product. Now in this class, we are creating a method. So we are creating a method public. The method name is print. Now it can have parameters. So here I am defining the return type as void, and it is expecting some parameters. How do we define the parameters? Parameter name, it is expecting name. And what is the type of parameter? Parameter type is string. Second, we have parameter as price. Its parameter type is number. And third, the parameter is some stock, and the parameter type is boolean. So this is new. In JavaScript, directly you have written parameters. You have used parameters. But in TypeScript, parameters also have data type. Parameters also have data types. Generally in JavaScript, when you write, JavaScript don't have any type for parameters. You directly write the parameter. But when you configure parameters in TypeScript, every parameter will have type. So here we need to pass the value according to the type and define. So what type it is expecting. So I am printing the details, console.log. I am printing name and this dot name. This not this required, because it is just parameter. We are printing the name. In the next, price, and here we are defining price. And in the next we have stock, and here we are defining stock. That's how we are configuring and using the parameters. So whenever you create an object, let obj is equal to new product, and through that object, whenever you try to access print, into that it is mandatory to pass all the parameters. So name must be what type? String type. If I type any another type of value there, it is not allowed. So it must be what type? String. And what is the price? Price must be number type. And stock must be boolean type. That is the correct. If any data type is mismatching, it will not allow. If any data type is mismatching, it will not allow. So technically, what is difference between your JavaScript and TypeScript? In JavaScript, we have parameters. In TypeScript also, we have parameters. But in JavaScript parameters, there is no data type. You can store any kind of value. But here we have data type. We can restrict the data type to that particular type. So that means we have to configure that. So additionally, this is what you will see. And one more, I will copy this. It will work in a same way. That means if you are printing the details, it will print. You can see I am compiling and executing this, and you can see it is printing the details. So this is little different. I will give you this. So TypeScript methods with the first I will give TypeScript methods with parameters, TypeScript methods with parameters, configured strongly. Strongly means data type is strongly. That means it is string or number, or that is strongly typed. That is TypeScript methods with parameter configured strongly. Syntactically, how we do? Public, so method name, and we have parameter, and we have data type. That's how we need to configure the data types. So in JavaScript, there is no need to mention about data type, but in TypeScript, we have to define the data types. Data type. Example, I will give you this. This is the example. Okay. Now, important, as I told you, every parameter is mandatory. Every parameter is mandatory. So, but in TypeScript, you can configure optional parameters. Every parameter is mandatory, but in TypeScript, you can configure optional parameters. How to configure optional parameter? For example, see, suppose here I am removing this price. I am not passing the price. If I am removing the price, then it shows error, because as per the request, you see expected 3 arguments, and it is saying that stock was not provided. It thinks that the second one is stock, second one is price. But I want this optional. This parameter is optional. Price is not there. If I want price as optional, then you can simply put as question mark. You can put as question mark. That is optional parameter. But here so many other rules are there. I will tell you. How to define an optional parameter? Take it simple. See, I am creating a simple method for you. First, public print method. It is taking name what type? String, and price what type? Number. And I am printing console.log. I am printing both name and price. Name, in the next line I am printing price. We are printing both name and price. Okay. Now, as per the rules, every parameter is mandatory. I am just passing here obj.print. Into that name I am passing as TV, and price I am not passing. Then it is showing error, because every parameter is mandatory. I want to make price as optional. So it says that 2 arguments, price was not provided. Now I will simply make it optional by using question mark. Now it is okay. That means now price is not defined. Here we don't need to mention it. That means price is defined as optional. Optional parameters are defined by using question mark. Already you learned in contracts. Optional properties are defined with question mark. What is this question mark called as? Question mark called as null reference character. It is called as null reference character. That means by using this question mark, you can define optional. But here one important is there. Here you are printing price. Then without providing price, how you will print it? How to handle the logic? If price is not provided, don't print it. If price is provided, then print it. In that case, we have to write a condition. If price is equal to undefined, Undefined means price is not provided. If price is undefined, then console.log. So you print only name. That means console.log, you print only name. That means if price is not defined, only name must be printed. Otherwise, else, if price is defined, it should print both name and price. That is how we have to write optional parameters. Otherwise, what it will do is, even you don't define the price, it is trying to print the price. We don't want to print the price until or unless it is defined. So if you mention any optional parameter, how to verify whether the parameter value is supplied or not? By using undefined. Undefined indicates whether the parameter is supplied or not. For example, here what we have done, we provided only name, and you can see what it will do. So compile it and run it, and you can see it prints only name. Suppose I am printing both name and price. I am printing both name, I am passing both name and price. Then it is able to print both name and price. You can see it is able to print both name and price. If I don't write that condition, what will happen is it will try to print the price even price is not defined. We don't want like that. If price is defined, then it will print. If not defined, it will not print. For that, we have to just verify this option. What is that? Undefined. Undefined indicates that it is not defined. Price is not defined. If price is defined, then it will print the details. So how to configure optional parameters? Optional parameters are defined by using question mark. Okay, that is the same. So can configure optional parameters syntactically. Public, method name, and parameter question mark and data type. That's how we define the optional parameters. But here some important rules are there. I will tell you. One important rule is there, we will discuss. Example I will give. This is the example. This is example for optional parameter. But what is the basic rule here is, every method can have optional parameter as optional parameter as last parameter. This is rule. Every method can have optional parameter as last parameter. That is very important. That means a required parameter cannot proceed. So cannot preside the optional parameter. This is the rule. This is not a problem in JavaScript because JavaScript don't have any optional parameters. But in TypeScript, we have optional parameters, then we have problem. The problem is, remember, so every method can have multiple optional parameters. That is not a problem. Every method can have multiple optional parameter, but optional parameter must be last. For example, see now, I am adding one more parameter into this. That parameter is stock, and stock is a boolean type, and it is showing some error. Why it is showing error? Because here you can see it tells that stock is declared. Okay, it is fine. Here you can see it is saying that a required parameter cannot follow an optional parameter. A required parameter cannot follow an optional parameter. That means after optional parameter, you cannot have a mandatory parameter. This parameter also must be optional. Then only it will work. That means you cannot have a required parameter after optional parameter. All optional parameters must be at the end. At the end. That is the basic rule when you are defining optional parameter. And for every parameter, you have to write if price undefined, if stock undefined, like that. Can you have multiple optional parameters? Yes. Can you have a required parameter after optional parameter? No. That means all optional parameters must be towards the end. Before that, there can be required parameter. Before that, there can be required parameter. After required parameter, you can have optional. But after optional parameter, you cannot have a required parameter. That is the basic rule about all can be optional. That is okay. All can be optional. But when you are using required parameters and optional parameters, this is the basic rule. So what is the rule? So every method can have optional parameter as last. That means, for example, I written like this: public method name, and here parameter 1 and data type, and this parameter 1 is optional. Okay, this parameter is optional, and comma another parameter, its data type. Like this I defined. This is invalid. This is invalid because this is a required parameter. You cannot have a required parameter after optional parameter. All optional parameters must be at the end. That is very important. I hope you already know about other type of parameters. For example, here you have learned about how do we deal with it. See, very important is TypeScript. TypeScript supports all JavaScript parameter types. So all parameter types means you can have array parameter, you can have object parameter, you can have JSON parameter, you can have function parameter. So you can have any type of parameter. Inside the parameter, it can be anything. It can be an object, it can be a string, it can be an array, it can be any kind. It can be any kind of value, right? We can have different types of parameters. We can configure different types of parameters. Technically, we can have various types of parameters. Yeah. Right? We can have any kind of parameters. So TypeScript supports all JavaScript parameter types. Currently here we are using what type? I will give this. Yeah. This is string type, this is number type, and this is an Boolean type. Suppose I want to handle an array, then how do we define an array? I want this method to print an array, then how we can print an array? That means we have to create here a collection. That means we have to define a list. List is a parameter, and it is a string type. It is a string type array. Like this we are configured. It is a string type array. That means now what it is expecting? It is expecting only string type values. Array. That means here we are printing for var item of list. We are printing every item. Console.log. We have to define the item. That means here we will create an object is equal to new product, and through that object we can access print. Now print is expecting a string array. How do we pass a string array? We have to just pass as an array type. It can contain string. That means I am using some like TV, another one like mobile, so another one like watch. We can pass different types of values. What it is going to do, it is going to take those values and it is performing an iteration and printing the values. So parameter type can be anything. It can be string, it can be number. You can see when I compile this now, it is going to print those details. You can have an array type, you can have an object type, you can have a JSON type, any kind of type. That means the parameter type can be any type. So you are defining, that means a parameter, TypeScript supports all JavaScript parameters. It can support an array, it can support an object or a JSON or a function, anything. It can support a string, it can support a number, it can support a boolean, any type, both primitive types and non-primitive. So for example, this is array type parameter, this is array type parameter. Now, can you tell me how to declare a parameter object type? How to create an object type parameter? That means I want to allow an object inside it. OBJ, object inside it, object inside it. Suppose I am creating an object inside it. What should be the data type? Data type for object must be any. Data type for object must be any. So if it is an any type, then for var property in, what is it? OBJ. And we are printing the property. So console.log, we are printing the property. We have to print the property and we need to print the value. That means OBJ of property. It is going to print the both property and value. This is going to print both property and value. Now how to pass the object into it? OBJ dot print. Into that we need to pass an object. Object means we have to put in a curly brace. Arrays are declared by using an array constructors. So here we have to directly define the object type. Now I am passing, so object contains name, object contains some price, some details like this we are defining, and object contains stock, true or false, like this we are defining. So parameter can be any type. It can be a number type, string type, array type, or it can be an object type. That means you can have an object type parameter. These are very important in later stage when you are learning Angular. Because in Angular you have to pass different types of data into the method, which can accept an array or a string. You should know how to configure the methods. That means object type parameter, this is. Object type parameter, this is object type parameter, how to configure, right? Now, how to declare JSON type? JSON type means array of objects. How to declare JSON type array of objects? I hope you can tell now. How to declare JSON type array of objects? I have to just define this is data. Data is what type? Data is what type? Any type array. Any type array. If you have to deal with the JSON type, then it should be any type of array. Now I need to read just names. That means for var item of data, we are reading it, and console.log, we are printing item. So I am just printing item. So actually item may contain lot of details. I will just use, for example, name, item.name. Now here you see obj.print. Into that it is an array of objects. Array of objects. In that name we have TV. And another object we have name like mobile. Like this we are defining array of objects. Now you can pass any kind of data into it and you can see this is also working fine. So all the parameters are same. Only the point is you need to learn how to declare the data types. Actually in JavaScript you have learnt all this. In JavaScript you have learnt all this. But in JavaScript, there is no necessity of mentioning the data types. So here only the difference is you have to mention the data type. You have to configure the data types, right? That is the data type, how you can specify. Another very important here is, so here another frequently asked question is TypeScript methods can have REST parameters. TypeScript methods can have REST parameters. You learned in JavaScript. In JavaScript, you learned what are REST parameters. JavaScript have REST parameters. Am I right? JavaScript have REST parameter. What is a REST parameter? JavaScript have REST parameters. What is REST parameter? REST parameter means a single parameter that can allow multiple arguments. A single parameter can allow multiple arguments. More than one argument is allowed through one parameter. That is what actually REST parameter. In JavaScript, how you write the REST parameters? I hope you know that in JavaScript. So this is suppose your JavaScript function. So function, this is some print. Now into the function, how to configure REST parameters? Dot and the parameter name. That means any parameter name. Suppose I said list. Now you learn that in JavaScript, right? This is called REST parameter. REST parameter means it allows multiple arguments. And those arguments we have to access and use them. For example, I will tell you the point if you are not aware, because JavaScript from ES5 onwards, it supports this REST parameters. For example, first I will tell you, see, suppose we have like name, we have like price, we have like stock. Like this, how many parameters we can pass in a method? How many parameters we can pass in a function or a method? In a function or method, how many parameters we can pass? So the maximum number of parameters you can pass in a method, 1024. That is the standard limit of number of parameters that can be passed in a method, 1024. And passing number of parameters is not good. Passing number of parameters is not good. Then due to that, it leads to lot of injection attacks. Passing lot of parameters leads to injection attacks. That is the reason JavaScript introduced REST parameter. REST parameter means here we can define dot and any parameter name. Now what this REST parameter can do is it can access all your values. That means how many parameters? Currently only one, but it can handle many values. How to collect and use those many values? We do that by using destructuring. Destructuring means we declare like this, where we have name, we have price, we have stock, and is equal to details. That means in the details, they can pass 3 values, or they can pass more than that. They can pass quantity, anything. Any number of parameters they pass, those values are stored in these references. And we can directly print them now. That means here I am using console.log, console.log, I am printing name is equal to whatever name is there. And in the next line, price is equal to, so whatever price is there. So price, and this is name like this. And in the next line, so stock is equal to whatever stock is defined. And in the next line, quantity is equal to whatever the quantity is defined, QTY. That is how we do. Earlier, we used to pass lot of parameters, but JavaScript have introduced REST parameters. This is called REST parameter. REST parameter means only one parameter that can allow multiple arguments. Then how to access all the arguments? By using destructuring. This is called destructuring. Destructuring, what it will do? In the details, whatever you passed, it will store. That means like this. I am accessing print. In the print, I am passing the details like TV. This is a string. Like price, this is a number. And we have stock. This is true. And quantity. All these values are now stored in this reference. All the values are stored in this reference. Currently, I am using HTML. I will use document.write. This is HTML. I am using document.write. I am using BR for line break. I am using BR for line break. Just temporarily to make you understand about that, because this already you know in JavaScript. Now you can see it is going to print all the details in this way. This is REST parameter. This is REST parameter. Already JavaScript teaches you REST parameters. So now the question is, TypeScript methods can have REST parameters? Yes. TypeScript can use all JavaScript parameters. It can have all REST parameters. That means if you don't know the point, what is a REST parameter? What is REST parameter? The answer is a REST parameter. REST parameter allows multiple arguments. With a single reference. Allows multiple arguments with single reference. More than one argument can be handled by using a single reference. That is what actually REST parameters. So technically, I hope if you have learnt in JavaScript, REST parameter also same rules. I think you know that every method can have only one REST parameter. Every method can have only one REST parameter. Another point is REST parameter must be the last parameter. Same like optional parameters. REST parameter must be last parameter, and there can be only one REST parameter. That is the basic rule you have to know. Syntactically, REST parameter is defined like this. Public, method name, you can have ... and parameter. That's how we need to configure the parameter. In TypeScript also, REST parameters are supported, same like JavaScript. If you don't know about REST parameter in JavaScript, I will give you this example. This is example for your JavaScript. This is JavaScript REST parameter. This is JavaScript REST parameter. Now let's declare a REST parameter in TypeScript and see how to handle it. So let's go. And in TypeScript, how to define REST parameter. So let's see. I am creating a simple method now. Now in the class, we are creating a method public. What is the method? Print. And inside the print method, here we are defining dot 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 and the parameter name. Parameter name, anything I will give as details. Details is the parameter. And very important here, return type, anything you can configure, void. This is the parameter. Now, how do we pass the values? I told you deconstructing, right? Destructing the techniques. You can directly print the details because remember it is treated like an array. This is treated like an array. It contains properties and values. It is treated like an array because it accepts multiple. Then what we do is I'm just using for var item of what details. Item of details and console.log I am using item. I am printing it. And whenever we access obj.print into that, we need to pass, you see, it is treated like an array. It is treated like an array. That means you can pass multiple arguments here. What are the multiple arguments? I'm passing TV, I'm passing some price, and I'm passing some stock. Like this, we are adding the details. Now, this is the rest parameter. That means earlier we have to declare 3 parameters to handle these 3 values. But now you are declaring only 1 parameter which can handle any number of values. Any number of values. Now I run this here. You can see when I run this, it displays all the details. We have the TV, we have the price, and we have the stock. All these are displayed. So JavaScript parameters and TypeScript parameters, JavaScript methods, TypeScript methods, all are same. Only one difference you have learned here. I will give this example. This is TypeScript REST parameter. This is TypeScript REST parameter. So I will copy that and paste. Right. This is the parameter. This is all about the parameters. That means methods concept is same like you have learned in JavaScript. But what difference you found here? One is method have a return type defined, or without return type it is written as void. Methods have access modifier, public, private, access modifier. Method have parameters with data type. Parameters also data type. And parameters can be optional. We can define optional parameters. And parameters supports REST parameter, array parameter, object parameter, any type of parameters. It can support any type of parameter. One more important you will see is actually TypeScript methods. Actually, TypeScript method can be configured with custom return type. TypeScript method can be configured with custom return type. It can be configured with custom return type, which is very frequently used in real time. In real world projects, you will see this very regularly. That means you see a method. Suppose I want to create a method to return string. Then what we do? Public, method name, and method name, its type is what type? String. We have to configure like this. If it have to return a number, we can define as number. But this can be custom type. Actually, this is not custom type. This is predefined. This is predefined type. String, numbers, all these are predefined types. But it can be custom type. What is custom type? You see here, see. I am creating, let's keep it clear now here. See, I am creating an interface. Interface means contract. I am creating a contract. And the contract is iProduct. Okay. As per the contract, it should have a name and it should have a price and it should have stock. which is Boolean type, that is the contract. Now I am creating a public, I am creating a class. I am creating a class name is product, and this product class is having a method, public print method. So, or I am giving as the method as get product. I am creating a method as get product. This should return only a product type data. It should return only product type data, not string, not number. It should return only product type data. Then the data type can be I product type. If the data type is I product type, it should return that particular type only. That means it should be I product type. That means it should return the product type data. It should return the data. That means what type of data it is, it should return. We have to configure it. That means actually, if it is an I product type, that means it is expecting the details. What are the details expected? Product type, that means it is expecting name. It is expecting name, and we define name as a string type. It is expecting what? Price. It is a price is a number type. It is expecting stock. Stock is a Boolean type. Like this, we need to define. That means if you are configuring a custom type, that means it should return that particular type. Into that we can pass different values. How to pass different values, I will tell you, we will discuss. But as of now, just only one basic thing. It is TV. Suppose it is price. Like this we configured. That means now the return type of this can be this. Now very important, I am using public, suppose get products, and it is an I product array type. I am configuring like this. I product array type. That means what it should return? It should return an array of objects. It should return an array of objects, and every object must be what type? Every object must be what type? Product type. Every object must be product type. That means here it should have name. So this is TV. This is some price. This is price. And it is having some stock. So stock, it is true, like this. You can have again multiple. So you have name like mobile, like this. Name. So we have like mobile. And we have price. So price is some price. So price. And we have another detail like stock. So stock is some false. Like this we need to handle. That means the methods in TypeScript, can have custom type. This kind of methods you will find later everywhere. In real world projects, generally in real world applications, when data comes, the method should work for the data. So that means it should be employee type, it should be product type, it should be student type. It returns only that. Now how to access this, you know, because it is returning, for example, let obj is equal to new product. And we are using here, I need to print these details. Remember, this is a method which is returning an object. If a method is returning an object, then we have to print it. That means we have to create like this for where I am giving property in object obj dot get product. Obj dot get product. What it is doing? This is returning an object. When it is returning an object, that object related properties we are accessing. And we want to print the property. Console.log. We need to print the property and we want to print the value and obj of property. It is going to print both property and value. You can see this is a simple program to understand how we can have custom return type. It is currently showing undefined. That's okay. Why? Because actually the product you have configured, you are printing the data type. Only properties we are printing currently. The values are not configured into it. So why? Because the values need to be configured. Obj dot, what is it? Obj dot, what is it? It is get product. Get product. Into that we have to pass the properties. That is the object actually. For this actually you need to know about deconstructing technique. I will tell you deconstructing technique. Now it will work. Actually this is an object now. This is object. Into that object we have to pass the property. Then it can display the details. That means we can create methods with custom types. And how to print this, you can write another for loop to read all the products and print them. I just written only for accessing everything from the get product. Similarly, we can access from get products. What get product will do? Get product will return one object and get products will return multiple objects. For example, if you want to print those multiple objects, then we have to use another for var item of obj dot get products. Get products is an array, right? So we are printing console.log item dot name. Every item related name I am printing. Or I can print other details like I want to print item dot price. We can print all the details. Now it is going to access both of them and display get products and get product. You can see it is accessing both. This is printing one product related information. This is printing both product related information. Right? You can create methods with custom type. This is one additional thing you will come across here and you will regularly use in real world projects. Because when we create methods, we want those methods to work for our own type. And here, how do we configure the type? By using a contract. This contract indicates what type of data it should return. And our methods also can use the contract. If anybody asked the question in this way, that means you learned about contract. If anybody asked you like, so contracts, so can a method implement contract? Can a method implement contract? Actually, so method can use contract. Method can use contract as type. Understood? It is not called implementing. Method can use contract as type. If contract is used as a type, it should return the value that type. That means the value type must be the return value type, right? The return value type must be the contract type. The return value type must be the contract type. So this is the new thing you need to know here. So I will copy this here. This is an example. For method. So methods concept, same like JavaScript concept, but some new things you have learned here. I haven't discussed anything related to JavaScript methods. I just given difference. In JavaScript, you will learn methods. Here also we have methods. In JavaScript, whatever you learned about methods is same here, but extra data types, return types, and optional parameters, how to handle them. REST parameters also not new. REST parameter is also available in JavaScript and here in TypeScript. This is all about the methods in TypeScript. how to configure the methods, and how do we define the methods. So let me give you the summary what we discussed. One is method type, return types, method return types, method optional parameters, method rest parameters, and method with custom return type. Method return types, method optional parameters, method rest parameters, and method custom return. So this is basically you need to know about methods, right? So that is the reason we ask people to have good knowledge of JavaScript, because all JavaScript topics we can't repeat here again, time consuming. So if you already good with methods in JavaScript, this is easy for you to understand, right? Why? Because people without any JavaScript knowledge, if they listen the topic today, they will be very confused. Because that is why we say learn JavaScript for Angular, right? Because if you are good with JavaScript methods and all, already you know all this. Only one extra thing is data types, return types, and how to write the return types, optional parameters. That is only new concept. Other than that, everything is same, right? So this is class related another member. In class, we have learned three members. One is properties, another one accessors, another one methods. In that class, we have another concept. What is it? In the class, we have a constructor. Now, what is a constructor? How the constructors are used in classes, that we will see. And here you will see so many new things. This I will detailedly tell you. That means constructor is there in JavaScript also. Here constructor is there with some more extra features. We will discuss about that, right? Tomorrow we will see. So tomorrow we will finish about the classes. Then we can go into abstract classes, polymorphism, inheritance like concepts. With that, we will finish all the TypeScript part. Then we will start with Angular. Mostly by this weekend, we will finish TypeScript. And from next Monday, we will start with our Angular, right? By this weekend, we will plan to finish the TypeScript part. Okay. Tomorrow we'll continue. Right.